for joining me for another family altar. Today I want to talk to you about your wife's needs. Last week we looked at what a husband needs from his wife, and we identified, actually in the book, His Needs, Her Needs, the top 10 list of needs that normally husbands and wives need from one another. What's very interesting about the study is stereotypically, normally the majority of the time, the top 5 needs for the husband are the bottom 5 for the wife, and vice versa. And so this week we're going to look at what the needs are of most women in a marriage relationship. The number 1 is affection. That's the expression of care from your spouse. That is showing that I love you. It's saying that I love you. It's saying that I care for you. That can be done through touch. That can be done through words. That can be done through a phone call to say, hey, I'm thinking of you today and hope your day is going well. That can be through flowers, whatever it is. But it's basically a man saying, I am thinking of the fact that I want you to know that we're secure in our relationship. And affection is a tricky thing because really what women want to see is, can a man provide affection without expecting anything else in return? Can he just offer what his wife needs and that be it? Need number 2 is intimate conversation. It's something that moves from the ordinary conversation, moves from just the simple facts of how was your day? Mine was fine. What's your day like being tomorrow? It's getting down to really who you are and what's going on in your life. And for a woman, there's a deep need for that intimate conversation, which is a struggle for many men who don't like to talk as much. And in fact, they come home and a lot of times they want to unplug. And unfortunately, a lot of times, while your wife deserves your absolute best after a long day of work, sometimes she gets your leftovers. And so this is something where you have to really dig in and say, I'm going to provide that intimate conversation so that we can have that dialogue, that open dialogue, and to know what's going on. Which brings me to the point number 3, which is honesty and openness. This is huge in the life of a woman who wants to feel secure that she knows not only what her husband is doing, but what are his thoughts, his heart, his emotions, what's going on, what are his motives in the things that he's doing. And so that honesty, that openness, that transparency provides such a sense of security. So many times I will hear that wives will say, I would much rather just know what's going on versus being unsure of. I can deal with what I know, but sometimes I just need him to be open and honest with me. Number 4 is financial support. Now this one's tricky, can be subjective, and this doesn't mean that we're going to have all the money in the world, that we can do whatever we want to. This doesn't mean rich, but this means that will your husband do what it takes necessary to keep your family financially secure. And what that looks like is different, honestly. Once again, it can be something where some people might define financial stability as this and another define it as that. But what it really comes down to is an area of security for women to say, I need to know that my husband would do whatever it takes, work any job that he had to make our family financially secure. And number 5 is family commitment. This is a huge one for a wife to know that the husband is taking the responsibility, the initiation to care for the children. Now, this is different than domestic support. This is different than making sure that the dishes are washed or the kids are tucked in at night. This is you are thinking about your children's development. And for a woman to know that the husband is thinking about that and not just throwing that off on her does so much to fill her love tank. It is absolutely huge to know he's not just sort of waiting for me to make the decision, but he's taking the initiation here as well. You know, if you look at this and these needs, you can sort of see how it's apparent in many women. But one thing you need to think of is that Ephesians 5:25 says this, husbands, love your wives in the same way that Christ loved the church and gave himself up for her. What a standard of love. In fact, any woman who I've ever talked to think of, hey, what if you could find a man that would love you in the same way that Jesus Christ would lay his life down, go to the cross in your place and take your punishment, take your pain upon him? How would you have a hard time following that man? And I've never met a woman who said, if I met a man who loved me the way Jesus loved me, I would have a hard time following. I've never, ever seen that. In fact, in Song of Solomon, chapter 2, verse 4, there's this other great verse that the bride is saying to her soon-to-be husband, and I love this. She says that he's brought me into his banqueting hall and that his banner over me is love. And what I love about this sort of this song, this verse that's going on is that she's singing this to her husband, is that think about this imagery. Back in the day when armies would be fighting and they'd be going against each other, and sometimes you maybe have seen one of these war movies where people are literally just fighting all around you, and I can't imagine the chaos of a battle like that. if somebody bumps into your shoulder, you're not sure if they're on your side or the enemy's side. And just imagine this, that in the chaos of the battle, sometimes it's scary to know who's on your side, who's not on your side, and where's a safe place to run. And so back in those days with these armies, what you would need to do is if you got lost in the midst of the chaos of the battle, is you could look up above you and you would see your army's banner raised high above you, and you could see that banner and you could run to it because you knew that under there you were safe and secure and protected. And so for this bride to look at her as a husband and say, his banner over me is love. What a statement that in the chaos and all the hysteria that sometimes can be life and all the conflict, all the tension maybe in the life of your wife, that as she is going around and she doesn't know who's on her side, who's against her, and she gets lost in the midst of the battle, for her to look up and know that the one safe place for her to run is the love of her husband, that his banner over me is love. And she can run strong and fast towards that banner, knowing that he will take care of her and that his love will protect her. It's the type of love that which Christ loved our church. Men, if you really want to love your wife the way that Christ loved the church, you've got to start looking at who she is, her emotional needs, and how you can love and protect her and make her feel secure. I challenge you men this week, regardless of what your wife is doing, you do what God has called you to do. Make this small alteration and see if it does not make home transformation for you this week.